Okay, so I had a call yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, with a prospect. I actually closed them, which is a funny story. And something interesting happened on that call, and they were talking about certain stuff that just made me think that a lot of people don't understand this pretty basic and quite vital concept that I'm going to explain in this video. And so I'm going to share it with you in this video so that you can learn from this before you ever make this mistake. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Ben Lister. I help agency owners by documenting all of my learnings on this YouTube channel that help me to make like multi-six figures every single year. So the prospect that we're talking about, first of all, I always ask questions, like, what are you doing right now? How's the outreach going? Like, what kind of systems are you implementing, right? I need to understand the situation first. And I very quickly got the idea that he was trying a bunch of different stuff and it was very, very random. He didn't know what to do, how to do it, when to change, all this kind of stuff. And so he said, I was doing a little bit of cold email, then I was doing a bit of social media, then I was doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I said, okay, like what happened with the cold email? Then explain to me, like why do you think it wasn't working? Like, why did you make that change? And he told me that the reason why he made that change was because he got a response from someone who told him that like this isn't working, like it's spam or something like that, some kind of negative response. And I asked him like, okay, like how many bookings did you get from that? He was like, I got like 4 or 5 over the course of a month. And I was like, okay, well, is that something that you're happy with? And he was like, yeah, like the amount of appointments was good, but I got this response. And so I basically changed my copy and I did this and I did that. And I was like, wait, hold on a minute. The number one thing that we are optimizing for when it comes to doing outreach and it comes to closing clients, getting people on the phone, is success. It does not matter if you email 100 people and 99 of them respond negative and one person responds positive if your KPI is 1%, because you're at that 1% KPI. Now, of course, you might be getting marked as spam. You might be pissing off a few people, right? It's not a nice feeling to get these people who respond to you and say you're not interested, might swear at you, just tell you unsubscribe. They don't even acknowledge anything in your email. But the number one thing is that we're getting these bookings in. And if that's happening, anything else in the system just does not matter. And this comes back to making really high quality decisions. And so when we're going to make a decision on something, whether to continue doing cold email, whether to, move to a different system or change the script or just continue with what we're doing, because of course that's a decision to just keep going or to double down on volume, we need to understand what the data says and which data points we are actually looking to interpret and work with. Because if, for example, we start to now optimize for anything other than appointments booked, positive responses, things that are positives, we're now going to be focusing on a cold email system or an outreach system that is not optimized for the best result possible, but it's optimized to not get the worst result possible. And it doesn't really matter if 50% of your lead list is interested or they say, this is a good email, if no one actually books a call. That's a worse system than if you have 100 emails, for example, and 50% of prospects are saying, this is okay, but they're not booking a call. They're just giving you some kind of positive response, like, keep it up. And 1% of those are booking an appointment. Whereas if you have another email system that has, 90% of people saying this is the worst email ever and telling you to fuck off and, unsubscribe and all that kind of stuff. And then 2% of people are booking an appointment. And so when it comes to the priority of order and which things you should be looking out for, the number one thing is, of course, sales, right? And we want to work our way down. Then we go to appointments booked. Then we go to, positive responses, all that kind of stuff. And so if you're going to make a decision on, and as well, the thing about it is it's such a small bit of information. If you send out hundreds of emails, on a weekly basis, which many of you probably do, if one person or 2 people or a very small number of that give you some indication that they don't like this or a specific part of your system wasn't working, and then you make a change on that, that's such a small amount of information to basically make this guess that everyone else is now going to be thinking the same thing. It's such a bad way to run a system. And if you run a system in that way, you're clearly letting the system be controlled by your emotions rather than actual data and metrics and the way that you really should be letting it be controlled by, because someone will always respond, not interested. Someone will always be rude to you. Someone will always, this is spam, right? There's a story that I heard about a guy who do a bit of research on cold email, and he sent 200 emails to this group of people that were going to a specific event, and he made the email very, very, very specific. He talked about the weather that day. He talked about, loads of stuff that just made it seem like it wasn't an automated email or a mass email, even though it was only 200 people. And it was a very specific person. Like, I see you at this event, would love to, speak to you if you're about today, something like that. And a person responded on that, telling him to not spam him, right? Stop spamming me. And so no matter how good your email is, your campaign or your outreach or anything like that, there's always going to be one person who just does not like to receive it, someone who has some kind of negative opinion. And so if you go and then base that one person's opinion on the whole campaign, you're just going to be in this endless cycle of negativity, changing things, and you're never going to find the thing that actually works. And so when we want to test things out and change things, we want to do it obviously with the positives in mind. Now, if you were to go and have a lead list of 1,000 leads, right, and you're going to do 100 emails a day, this is 10 business days, on the first day, you might have zero appointments booked, you might have 0 positive responses, but you might have 10 negative responses. Now, this would be pretty alarming early on, okay? And you might think, this is not a good campaign, it's not going well. But the next day, you might get 5 bookings. The next day, you might get 5 bookings, and it might average out as about 4 or 5 bookings a day. But because on that first day, you got all your negative responses, or a lot of negative responses, and not many positive responses, and not many bookings, if you then went and made a decision on that campaign based on the first days of data, and you just pause the campaign, you would never know that campaign was any good. And so you have to let it run. You have to let the data actually, have enough data there to make a quality decision. And it's just as likely that you're going to get those negative responses at the start of the campaign as at the end of the campaign. And so if the average is 5%, right, it's just as likely that you're going to get those positive responses at the very end, the middle. They're going to be spread out evenly. They're going to be at the start. It doesn't really matter. The law of averages and law of statistics, it doesn't really care about all that. If you're then going to make a decision on this and you're not going to start to optimize slowly, right, and you're not going to find things. And so just for the record, like, the way that this would work and the way that you would actually progress and make a campaign better is you separate your metrics out, right? So if you have a cold email system, the first thing you want to track, of course, is how many people are actually seeing this, the open rate. Then you want to track how many replies you're getting that are positive. Then you want to track how many people are actually booking an appointment. And there could be some more metrics in the middle of there. So between booking an appointment and responding positively, maybe there's like a lead magnet in there, right? Maybe you say, reply if you are interested in this, and we track how many people are interested in that. But what we want to do at that point is we want to have a KPI, right? So let's say you want your open rate to be 50% or 60% or whatever it is. If your open rate is not at 50%, if it's 30%, then you need to make a change based on the open rate, right? So this is going to be a change in the email deliverability. This is going to be a change in how the campaign is actually structured. Maybe a change in the subject line, how many people are seeing the email and not even opening it because the subject line doesn't make sense to them. That's what you would change. Then if there's an issue with let's say that the open rate is completely fine, and obviously we go down this in a tier order, the open rate is fine, but the number of responses we're getting, positive responses, is not as high as we'd wanted. Then we need to make a change on maybe the offer, maybe the email copy, maybe the actual messaging, how much personalization is in the email. People are seeing this email and they're choosing not to respond, and we need to figure out what we need to do to get them now to respond, because people are seeing the email, so the email deliverability is fine. Then we move on to the positive response rates. Now let's say we're getting a lot of positive responses, but not many people are booking in. How's your follow-up process looking like? People are actually liking this email. Now we just need to convert them into bookings. Maybe we need to work on our call to action, and they've actually responded positively. Maybe there's a certain amount of questions that we need to answer. Maybe at some point in the email copy, you're saying something that makes people respond positively, but then you're responding and saying, actually that's not the way the offer is, right? You say it's a pay-per result, and you say, actually there's $10,000 up front before you join. And so that's why people aren't booking an appointment. And so you can always see between the data where the decision needs to be made and what the decision needs to actually be based on. And so if you're just getting a negative response and you're saying, this email campaign is no good, I'm now going to try Instagram DMs, and I'm going to run an Instagram DM campaign because I think that's where my niche is more based. I see my niche on Instagram, so I'm going to stop doing this cold email, and now I'm going to move to Instagram, right? If you're making decisions like that, which a lot of people are, and a lot of people don't really see the fact that they are making these decisions. Oftentimes they make the decision and they think that they're doing the right thing, but when they look back on it from a bird's eye view and they see the system as a whole, you can really start to understand, and especially when someone like me is from the outside looking in onto a business, and when I speak to a prospect and they tell me, this is what's happening, it's clear as day for me. And obviously I have maybe a bit more experience than them, and I've ran a couple of companies and signed a lot of clients, and especially through the outreach systems that we're talking about. But when you start to step outside the business and you see that, it's very, very, very obvious. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say for this video. It's kind of self-explanatory to someone like me who's done this so many times, but I really do understand how this can be something that, gets people muddled up, and people start to make decisions based on emotions and not actual rational data and logic. But yeah, if you're looking for more clients, anyway, first link in the description. I don't really care if you click it or not. This video and this channel is really just for me to document everything that I'm learning and putting all of my experiences on my sales calls and all the experiences that I have when I run my business on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, you don't have to click it, of course. I don't really care if you do. But if you did enjoy the video, then like it, and obviously comment and all that kind of stuff, and subscribe. But yeah, thank you for watching this one to the end. Cheers.